Welcome back to Roast Education. This is Ed. Today we're going to be talking about CEI or Camber Energy. It's been a while since I talked about this one, and volumes have plummeted since then. I believe we started talking about this one a little bit in May or early May, late April, and back in March. And right now, volumes have cooled down quite a lot, and we can actually discuss with kind of a sound mind into what is most likely going to be happening soon, given that the volumes and the hype is kind of passed a little bit away or cooled down for the time being. Now, CEI or Camber Energy has different products and different divisions. We covered this one before. So some of that is power solutions and clean energy. And they did have different press releases about it a bit ago, I believe earlier in the year, where they were talking about different green energy technologies and different technologies in general that they're interested in. And they also talked about basically going on for a renewable diesel facility, as you get to see here. And they have different subsidiaries that also are interested in things like patented carbon capture systems, and that was an IP license. So they're definitely trying to go into that direction overall. Now, they do have different news. For instance, back on the May 20th, it said Camber Energy provides update on public filing. And this was in relation towards the one that was a little bit towards the 10Q relations, I believe 31st, well, that was almost a year ago, and throughout the year. It basically was saying that the company basically audited the consolidated financial statements of the fiscal year, and it contained the audited report from the independent registered public accounting firm, and it's available for public, and things should basically be all right now. Now, there's another one here, which is basically them disclosing a bit of communication from the listing, like New York Stock Exchange American. And what it says is that they're pleased to announce that it received a letter basically telling the company that they are in compliance with the exchange, or is back in compliance with the exchange's continued listing standards set forth by Part 10 of the NYSE American Company Guide. Well, if you do recall, there was some issues relating towards financial reports, and they fired their accounting firm, and they had audits and everything like that, and that kind of put them in non-compliance with New York Stock Exchange, and now they are back in compliance. So that should be a good news. Now, in terms of retail ownership, and by the way, there's not much news other than that when we look back into the general news. We do have a few in terms of different communications, closing acquisition for a new subsidiary, but we're going to take a look a little bit into retail ownership first. So for retail ownership, we're seeing here, and this is on Fintel, so I'm not exactly sure how accurate this can get, but it's around 0.25% of the market share. I do doubt that that's only the smaller share or the total share, and it could be out of the entire market cap rather than just the float. Now, in terms of institutional buyers, we get to see some bigger names here, or bigger holds. Antilles Family Office, they have around 40 million shares, and that's the current shares. You see back in February, we have Renaissance Technologies LLC, 22.6 million shares. And we get to see that institutional buyers are kind of mixed. You have some that are buying, some that are selling. And so values changes and shares changes in general. For instance, you get to see some are increasing, like 24%, and you get to see this First Trust Natural Gas ETF, for instance, liquidating their entire position. So it kind of goes both ways, I would say. It's a bit balanced. Some days you get an exit a little, others you get an addition. Anyway, going on towards the total assets, and this is going to be looking back into September 30th, 2021 versus 2020. This was one of the audited files that they've given, so it should be accurate. We get to see that the total assets doubled around that time, and their cash was around almost 6 times as much, 5 to 6 times as much. So they do have a lot more cash on hand, which is good. Equity method investments, you have a bit of an increase there as well, and the total assets increased. Now, there's a bit of an issue here because the total liabilities have also increased, not double, but close. I mean, it went from 113 million to around 198 million, and that's a bit of an issue there. So they have high liabilities, and I do imagine that they're fixing it because they did mention different offerings or different money raisings in general. So for instance here, they had a $100 million equity transaction with institutional investor. So I do imagine that these are kind of getting settled, and you don't need to worry about these ones as much, but you get to kind of see where the company have grown, and they did raise money, and that can also affect dilution if you think about it. Now, net income loss attributed to common shareholders, that was around $264 million in loss. This is for 3 months ending September 30th, compared to around 20 million. Now, a big part is on derivative liability. So that liability part is what's really bringing that company down in terms of their net loss. But overall, when you look at total operating expenses, it increased just marginally, and oil and gas sales doubled. So there has been a bit of an issue there with some of their, I would say, banks or prices in the sense in terms of liability, but hopefully they'll be able to fix that on. And you get to see that there is remnants of that when you look at the money they're raising in general. Now, short interest, currently there's around 700,000 shares available for short selling, and you can see it's around 17% utilized for the short borrow fee rate, and that's the percentage. In terms of the short volume in general, you get to see that there's around 50% at any given day where that entire volume is going towards the short side. Now, in terms of price over sales, we still don't have the most up-to-date numbers in price over book, so E-Trade is not really being that friendly with this company at this point. But profitability, management effectiveness, and growth rate, we still don't have the updated numbers for the full year of 2021 and maybe a few months as well into the second quarter, the first quarter of 2022, just so we can get some of the metrics like price over sales. Before moving on towards technical analysis, if you would like to see more content like this, make sure to click the subscribe button on the bottom right corner and leave notification buttons on, and don't forget to drop a like. If you'd like to join our Discord, it's in the description below. Let's move on now towards technical analysis. Now, from a technical analysis perspective, CEI has a little bit of different, or I would say mixed news in general. Now, it's trading below all the moving averages, whether it's a 200 SMA, 50 SMA, 30 SMA, or 10 SMA. Now, the 80X is sitting at 13 or 14, so it's nothing really that is going on significant. Now, 1% R, though, is showing that this one is a bit on the oversold part. So that means that there's more supply than there is demand. And sometime at some point, it's going to balance out. And if it does, or when it does, you might actually see a nice jump in price. The MACD, though, is showing that this attempted a positive reversal kind of started on the 18th of May and then attempted a negative reversal around the 24th of May and continued to do so. So currently there is a bit of a push with the market currently a bit improving in the last 3-4 days, but you get to see that it's at a critical point where momentum is positive, but MACD is negative, so it's definitely a tug of war, but it can easily rip still upwards. Now, in terms of stochastic fast and stochastic slow, both are kind of showing that there might be another leg up for this one. And going on towards just the general moving average bands and as well the Bollinger Bands, you're able to see that it's expected to trade between 78 on the top, 64 on the bottom, and 84 and 58 top and bottom. So there's definitely kind of a range, and it's within the range, but it's on the bottom side. Overall, you get to see the moving average bands in general going downwards, which is not a good thing, but volumes are quiet, and with any news, this is set to basically push a little bit further. Now, in terms of Fibonacci retracements, you're able to see a significant resistance at 140, 206, 259, 312, and 388, and a support at 33 cents. Now, in terms of general price line actions, you're able to see a support at 65 cents, going to 61, going below to around 56, 52, and 45. Resistances, we have one at 67, one at 71, one at 76, one at 81, one at 85, and then going higher to around 89, going to 94, going to 99, and then higher to around 103, 106, and going a little bit higher to around 120 and 124. Comes to the question to Ed, what do you think is more likely going to happen? Well, this is definitely looking like it's waiting for a bit of news. Now, it is currently kind of dropping a little bit downwards. There is currently somewhat of a negative trend line that you kind of can get to imagine on what's going on. But overall, I would say in the last few days or so, you can starting to see maybe a bit of a wedge. Things are starting to bounce at a higher price. And when you look into the last few weeks in May, so there's definitely kind of a pressure or a tug of war between bullish and bearish, and with a bit of news, it can easily rip off or rip up. What do you think about this ticker? Make sure to mention down in the comments below. Share, subscribe, and like, and have a wonderful day.